ground about 6 inches, no, 9 inches deep, and they doused it before we started. So this was the, again, I come from a farm, haven't left the Shire very much, and certainly in our household, fairies or wands to find things in the ground didn't really exist. Right? Now, interestingly, because my grandfather, my mum's dad, I spoke about yesterday, he was the dairy farmer, he would just go to the hedge, get 2 sticks, break them off, walk across the field and go, that's where the water is. But how do you know that? I often say this, my cousin and I spent weeks, Granddad took on a new field and we spent weeks looking for the water, and he said to me, it's got to be water in that field, trust me. And we spent weeks with a spade going round and round and round the field, couldn't find nothing, couldn't find a damp spot anywhere. And he literally came in, about 30 seconds later, he went, dig there, 2 foot down, natural spring. So how do you do that? So they doused the ground and they were looking for an in point and an out point. And again, you know, me thinking it's all a bit woo-woo, they took, we dug a hole at the in point, and the in point is the female point, and the out point is the male point. So they were, you know, I don't know, 50 metres or so apart, 100 metres apart, and we took the time to put them in the ground and fill them full of granular basalt. Now the basalt is magnetic, so it draws the energy. I don't know how, please don't get me into technical stuff. Andrew or Francesco could explain that on a phone call. I can't. So the energy comes in, goes round, comes out, goes round, comes round, and the basalt acts as a battery and stores that energy inside it. Now for me, as I say, as an expert in agriculture and horticulture, it goes against everything I've ever seen. So what we started to witness was, and Gloria can testify this, I've got pictures on my phone, make sure you get to see the pictures before you go. We had strawberries in grow bags on top of bales, north facing wind, winds howling across the allotment, you know, veg beds all the time. And I went up there, I've got pictures on my phone from November and I think it was November and February. I've got to find the January one. So any gardeners in the room, keen gardeners, you'll know that strawberries die off over winter. Fair? Yeah? And if you're lucky, you might still see something, some glimmer of hope. Well, I took all the runners off the strawberries before the winter started, and I potted them all up and stood them to one side on the veg beds, all in pots, trays. They didn't get watered, nothing weren't looked after, nothing. But they were near one of the power towers. Those little plants got bigger all through the winter. Nothing at all died off. Nothing. And I went up to the veg beds early January, Gloria to second, whatever, early January, and there was a thick frost and snow overnight. And I brushed off the snow off the strawberry plants because we were documenting everything, because no one had ever done this in the UK before. They were like, document everything, everything's got to be documented. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just this is proper clever stuff, you've got to understand how clever this stuff is. Yeah, whatever. And the strawberries were on sodden flower. And I was like, how can they be on flower in January? They're covered in frost, they're covered in snow. Now, what I have come to the conclusion with the electroculture, I do not think, no, let me backtrack. Do you guys, like me, believe in the spring when the weather gets warmer and the earth comes to life again, that when it's warmer, things start to grow? Yeah, that's a fair assumption, isn't it? Yeah? I don't think that's true. And I know that sounds a ridiculous thing to say, but the reason I say it is because I think it's to do with the energy levels in the atmosphere changing as it gets warmer. And the reason I say that is because what we witnessed over the course of the winter with the electroculture, I can't explain. I genuinely have no idea how it works. But what I can tell you is, it does. So we had these huge strawberry plants, what the size of dinner plates. They were massive, all growing beautifully. We put garlic in September. The electroculture side had just been put in. We put an I said to the girls, I said, I've got loads of garlic cloves, they're all shooting, go for it, put them in. 3 days later, they ran the ground 3 inches. And I'm like, guys, you didn't set them deep enough, you know. And they're like, no, we did. They're like, they're in there really deep, so we'll cover them up because they're going to bolt. So sure enough, they covered them again. Went up there 3 days later, they're out of the ground again. I was like, no, you can't be. So the girls like, we're going to need to cover them again. And they covered them 3 times before they started to calm down a bit. We pulled some of those the other day. Jesus, I have never tasted garlic. It was like paint stripper. It was so strong. The flavour was so much in it. You were like, oh. So I said Gloria, Paul, I said, Gloria, I said, I'll have some there for dinner. It's chocolate. I was like, Jesus, what is that? And the onions as well taste like onions. Used to taste like when we were kids. They're not bloody watery anymore. So it definitely added from my side. The size was better. The flavour was better. One thing which I will say, we did not have any insect problems. And Francesco always says, they said, you only get insect problems when you've got unhealthy plants. Because if you've got a blemish on something, that's what flies attack. Because they're after the smell, the taste, the sweetness of it, whatever. He said, if you've got healthy plants with no blemishes, you don't get flies. So interesting. So, and we never had any flies. And the other side was, as Gloria would tell you, we had, at the end of our veg beds, we had a load of IDCs with the tops cut out, because we run a fruit and veg wholesale company, so all of our waste went into those. And there was about 8 of them stacked up around about the farm. All the flies, we had thousands upon thousands of flies. Everyone says, oh, there's no insects. There's loads of insects. Just go and find the shit, you'll find the insects. It's as simple as that. And we had loads of the damn things everywhere. But they never came near the fruit and veg, ever. It was bizarre. So what I will say is the electroculture definitely, I don't know how, but the force field, or whatever you want to call it, definitely keeps the insects away because the plants are healthy. It definitely gives you a better size of produce, a better flavour of produce with the goodness in the ground. But what I will say is the electroculture is only one part of it. And it isn't any good installing it if you don't do the rest of it. And so for us, the first section was to build really good quality soil, soft, you know, you could do it with your hands, and that was nice and rich. When we built the second lot of beds, we built them and we put basalt in them. Actually, it's only like tiny little pebbles, tiny, and we would just go along and just get a handful as we were putting the rows together, and every layer we put on, next layer of compost, we put another layer on, next layer, wood chip, put some more on, next layer. And we started to see how the beds were building and the energy was coming into the place. The most bizarre thing that I found, one night I came home and I'd got a lorry of fruit and veg coming in. That was where our fruit warehouse was, and the veg beds were next door. And I went up there, and there stood right down the side of the whole bloody driveway, down the side of our veg beds, was about 30 deer, all stood looking in the like this over the fence. And I was like, what are they doing? They're like, they were paralysed. I was like, that's a really bizarre thing. And I got out and I was like, and it wasn't until I'd like slammed the van door, they were like, oh, there's someone here, we better get away, you know. But they would come and stand and look at these 2 chimney pots. Now I don't know what they could see, what I can't, but obviously I don't know if they could see the energy or what. You know, people say, oh, they can definitely see it. What I know is I couldn't see anything. I could see the proof of what was going on, but they could definitely see something different, and they would come every night and just get their fix. That's what it seemed like. It was like a drug to them, you know. So there's definitely an energy getting into the veg beds. Now, that's the power tower side. No wires involved whatsoever. You just you douse it, put your towers in, fill them full of granular magnetic basalt, and we put some crystals on them, and we what's the word? Like, you know, we gave our thoughts of what we wanted from the atmosphere and intentions. Yeah. Absolutely, our intentions. We wrote it down and put it in there and covered it up, and then put some crystals on top. These things work brilliantly. Now, then you come to the what I'm going to deem as the proper electroculture, where you're going to get an aerial, put it up, get the wires into the ground. So when we come to build those ones, ran out some wire,